Ace Bailey, welcome to the party. The Rutgers freshman forward finally had his breakout superstar esque game at Indiana, where he dropped 39 points on 55% shooting, 50% from three, along with 8 rebounds, 4 blocks, 1 steal, 0 assists, but 0 turnovers. We'll get into it all. We're going to dive through what really stood out in his breakout game without Dylan Harper from start to finish. I'm Tyler Metcalf. Welcome to Film School. Let's dive in. All right, right off the bat, Bailey was aggressive in terms of scoring. As we can see here, just does a really good job going ISO and getting downhill. This is something that he's kind of struggled with for most of the year, and there's a good reason. So, for most of the season, well, right off the bat here, Ace does a really good job of kind of catching his defender square in his stance and on his heels. Ace is almost exclusively attacking to his right all year. Defenders should know that. Something he'll have to work on going forward. But as he attacks downhill here for the vast majority of the year, and as we'll see in a few clips coming up, this strong side help defender is typically collapsing all the way down into the lane to take away that driving lane from Ace and totally just commit to the drive and daring the shooter in the strong side corner to make a shot. For most of the season, and especially in this game when the rest of the team went 11 to 32, it's been a really safe bet. But typically, you don't help us off a strong side corner. And as we can see here, when that happens, Ace does a really good job of using his size and his strength to kind of fend off his initial defender, secures the ball high through the help dig, and then uses his size and speed to get to the spot before the weak side rotation can even get over, and uses his size to finish through the contact. In general, this also felt like a really strong defensive game from Bailey. There were a good amount of cases where he got caught ball watching and back cut, but at worst, I would describe it as a neutral impact and lean towards it being positive. And we've seen the defense getting better and better by the game. So he doesn't get a block here, but I really like the pursuit and the screen navigation that he shows. And it's so crucial to remember that he's 6'10" doing this. So right off the bat, Mbako's going to run off this floppy action. Miles Rice sets a back screen, and Ace does a pretty good job of kind of reacting quickly, getting through it. And then on the second one, does a really good job of getting through this about as cleanly as he possibly can. Gets low, uses a little bend, slides right over the screen. And now if he was 6'5", 6'6", he's out of the play. He's too far behind. But again, he's 6'10", pursuing one of the better off-ball shooters in the Big Ten through multiple screens, and that his size allows him to get this late contest. So even though Mbako gets, when he starts to elevate, it's relatively a clean look here, but since Ace is so stinking big and long and athletic, this is a really strong late contest. So even though he doesn't get a block here, he forces a pretty bad miss. Now we get into a little bit of the absurd shot making upside that Ace has in his arsenal. Now I know at first glance this looks like a long two, bad shot selection, and okay, if you want to nitpick, sure. But this is something that 99.9% of players in college basketball simply cannot do. And at his size, with his scoring touch, with his shooting ability, this is what makes him one of the elite prospects in this class. So this is just really simple ISO pull-up stuff here. Would be great if he was a foot back. Sure, that's something to fix in the long term. But right off the bat here, just a little jab step gets his defender leaning a little bit. It doesn't take much. Again, Ace Bailey is 6'10" with a really high release point. So all he needs is to use that little jab step, gets his defender leaning back on his heels here. We can see him trying to protect against the drive because remember, just a couple minutes ago, he got beat going to the rim. He's trying not to do that again. Ace creates that space. And as he rises up, right here, it looks like a solid contest. But look at how high Bailey elevates. His eye line is so far above the defender's contest that this is essentially a wide open shot. something else that I think is really important to point out here is Bailey is doing this with non-ideal footwork and off of a not, he's off platform here. So what I mean by that is that this isn't typical footwork when you're rising up. You want your feet to be shifted here to be a little more on balance, but that's also kind of what separates Bailey as one of the elite shooters. And we see elite NBA shooters do this all the time where they're able to square up in midair and knock down shots despite elevating off of, non-ideal uh, footwork or a non-ideal platform. So as he rises up, that's essentially wide open for someone of his ability at his size, and he knocks it down. Now Bailey's back to being more aggressive, getting downhill, and this is a really similar situation to what we saw in that first clip, but this time out of the pick and roll. Again, exclusively to the right on most of his attacks downhill, but as he kind of comes off the screen, kind of surprised he didn't just pull up given how well he was shooting in this game and how far under the defender's going. But as he comes off the reset of the screen, Bailey sees all of the space to attack down into, and last time he did this, he got a layup at the rim. So as he attacks down, Mbako helps a little more aggressively here than Galloway did in the first drive, and the defender does a much better job of kind of getting to the spot and trying to cut off the drive than he did the first time as well. However, when we look at the defender's footwork, he's crossing his feet, he's panicking, he's rushing to cut off this drive, so he's off balance. Bailey does a great job of, again, securing the ball, using that left shoulder to protect from the initial defender, securing it through a potential dig, and instead of trying to force it all the way to the right, he does a great job of stepping back towards the middle of the floor against the defender's momentum. His strength and that ability to secure the ball shrugs off the defender. Now he's able to step through, and as he elevates, the rim protector is out of the play because he's late to kind of recover, and since Bailey's covering so much ground on that step through, he's not expecting Bailey to be in this position anyways. So as Bailey steps through, he again does a really good job. It's a rough place to pause that. Does a really good job of protecting the ball, extends way out with that right hand, guarantees that Ballo has no chance of blocking it. Now he doesn't get the finish, but he draws a ton of contact, gets the foul, almost gets it to fall. But from start to finish, it's this blend of ball security, footwork, and finishing craft that we haven't seen a ton of from Bailey this year, but really, really showed up in this game. And now when you think of 4 or 5 years from now, once he's added another 10, 15, 20 pounds of muscle, that's where his rim pressure potential gets really, really exciting. And we'll just take a quick break from impressive scoring craft to some more absurd shot making. As a defender, there's nothing you can do here. Luke Goody is doing about as good of a job as he can here, and this is just a case of a guy who's 6'10", being in the zone. Again, don't love the shot selection, but it's getting a little late in the clock. No one else on this team can do anything, so it's screw it. Let's rise up and hope for the best. Last time we saw him utilize a little jab step, going forward. A couple years from now, it wouldn't be surprising if we see him kind of implement that Jason Tatum-esque kind of jab step back into a 3 instead of a long 2 here. But this is a case of a guy just feeling himself. Again, rises up off of platform, funky footwork. Doesn't matter though because he's in the zone, and by the time he's releasing it, he's squared up. Really good, consistent fundamentals here. They look funky based on how when we're watching it live, they look a little funky and like he's kind of throwing it at the hoop because of his base when he elevates. But as he gets to his release point, again, eye line is over the hand, Ball is nowhere close to the contest. Defender's doing about as good of a job as he can. It just simply doesn't matter. When we talk about singular talents in terms of shot making, it's stuff like this that separates Bailey from the rest of the class. Um, it's not a good shot. It's not a good decision, but his shot selection is different from everyone else. Again, it's from a strategic standpoint, based on the shot clock. I mean, it's really early on the clock here. Is this the best shot they could have gotten? Maybe not, but at the same time, the rest of the team is shooting 34% from the floor in this game, and Ace is feeling himself. So I'm kind of okay with it. Um, Again, drives exclusively to the right. Defenders have to be sitting on this a little more aggressively than they are, especially in this game. Um, he never goes left. Defenders need to start exploiting that more, and he needs to start being better about diversifying his downhill attack. But defender does a good job of kind of keeping him out of the lane here, and Ace is just kind of driving into his teammates' attempted post up, slams on the brakes, and covers just a ridiculous amount of ground here on this turnaround. So left foot goes from there to there. That is a massive change in where he's in terms of space creation. And I mean, help defender is getting about as close as he possibly can to contesting it. At his size, though, that high release point, the amount of space that he generates on that step back takes away his initial defender's ability to kind of really contest, and he's just unfazed at this point. Really consistent mechanics on the release again, even though the footwork may look funky, his balance is so stinking good every single time, and he just knocks down a shot that has no business going in. I do appreciate that almost immediately, Bailey attacks to his left and is able to create something out of it. Obviously, he ends up going back to his right here, but again, this just is another testament and example to how good his footwork is and his balance on his jumper. So attacks left, and again, look how aggressively this gap help is. So yeah, I get the gripes with, oh, he doesn't get to the rim enough, but when every time he drives, help defenders are, he's collapsing the defense like this because they don't care about anyone else shooting on this team, especially when Dylan Harper's out. I'm not going to worry too much about the lack of rim pressure. Instead, this type of footwork and his ability to get low, slam on the brakes, gets both defenders kind of leaning and in the air, spins back towards all this space over here. Again, creates a ton of space on that step through where his left foot is going from just slightly off center in the middle of the lane to now he's elevating from the opposite side of the lane with this kind of little running push shot floater. What is the defender supposed to do here? It's insane shot making and again, a real testament to his ability to knock down really tough shots with a really impressive scoring touch. And even when he looks like he's off balance and it looks like a bad shot, it kind of isn't. This is probably the best that Bailey's handle has looked all year. And again, really good job of getting downhill, using his size to finish through the contact. There's a lot going on here. So let's break it all down. So initially drives to his right. Yet again, defender knows that. He catches him leaning. Really good hang dribble crossover to kind of get the defender off balance. As he attacks to his left, look at how aggressively all of Indiana is protecting the paint and trying to keep him out of it and exclusively focused on Bailey. Caden Carlisle is incredibly deep here. I believe that's Bryson Tucker, who's in the middle of the lane. And there are 5 defenders with the sole focus of theirs being to stop Bailey. So as Bailey sees this really aggressive gap help. He then crosses back over and again attacks his defender's momentum, attacks the high foot, and now has a driving lane here. Help defender out of the strong side. We saw those couple clips earlier where they stayed home a little more. Well, Rutgers has their backup center who's taken 3 3-point attempts all season, spaced out to the corner on the strong side. Tough kind of schematics here. So it makes sense that the help defender is going to be like, all right, I'm staying home because I don't care if you kick out to this guy because he's probably not going to shoot it. And if he does, he's probably not going to make it. So stay home and try and protect the rim as much as possible. Now, the counters to the lack of playmaking vision here, he has his teammate here at the top of the key and his teammate out above the break on the opposite wing. Theoretically, those would be two passes that I would love to see him make. However, his point guard here is a 22% three-point shooter on the year. His teammate out here is at, I think he's at like 38% on the year, but it's only at 2 attempts a game, and he was 29% last year. So, I mean, if you want him to kick out there, okay, I guess. Process-wise, it would be a great read to make, but the odds are those guys aren't going to make the shot. And with the game that he's having, I am more than okay with him keeping that ball high, protecting it, trying to get downhill, getting to the rim, potentially trying to draw a foul, and instead just finishing with the layup because I trust Bailey to make this shot more than I trust any of these guys to knock down a wide open jumper. And again, look at the attention that he's drawing with all 5 defenders in the paint on his drive. Bailey's defensive playmaking in this game was really good yet again, and it's been improving by the game. So, nothing overly crazy here, but at his size, at 6'10", there's just so much more room for error in terms of being a low man defender. He has, like we saw in that previous clip, where that late contest is a lot more impactful than someone who's 6'6". Again, being 6'10", and being in position at the right time really can change things as that low man defender. Just provides a lot more versatility and upside for him on the defensive end. Really good job of not being dogmatic about staying with his guy here in transition. Reads what's in front of him, sees that Ballo is unmarked. Ballo gets the feed in transition here, and Bailey is right there. He's exactly where he needs to be, when he needs to be, and the fact that he's 6'10", good athlete, times his jump to perfection, elevates right when Ballo does, allows him to meet him at the peak. Great job of locating the ball without fouling, gets the block. Bailey's playmaking opportunities were few and far between in this game. Now, this isn't like some scientific over-the-top read where he dissected the defense, but it's one of those examples of him just making the simple read, and he should get an assist here, theoretically, but he doesn't. So, little handoff action coming out of the corner, comes off the high pick and roll, and as he comes off the screen, his defender goes under, cuts him off. Drop defenders in the middle of the lane. Gap defender is playing really aggressive gap defense. He doesn't care about who's on this weak side at all. It doesn't matter. His sole purpose here is to take away the drive, force Bailey to back it out, make life difficult for Bailey because he is shredding them at this point. He does his job. Bailey backs out, makes just the simple read, kicks out to his teammate above the break, wide open 3. It's simple read, it's a simple pass, it's the right decision by Bailey, and the shot, unfortunately, doesn't get close. A bit more of Bailey's really impressive weak side rim protection here. Great job of rotating over late in the clock, so he knows that this shot is going up. And if Rice somehow kicks out of this and Bailey elevates and jumps, and Rice is able to kind of counter with finding a cutter at the last second, then that's just kind of kudos to him. Instead, Bailey times it perfectly. May have gotten away with a bit of a goaltend there, but who cares? No whistle, no foul. Swats it off the backboard, and, I got to leave in the heave because kudos. On this one, just another example of how kind of impactful Bailey was as the low man with his weak side rotations in this game. And when we think about him translating to the NBA, being able to make these types of rotations consistently on the defensive end as that low man, as the other team is operating a high pick and roll or something, can really make a big, big difference. Instead of it being a 6'4 guard, it's a 6'10 forward. It helps a lot. So Indiana's just kind of running this little high pick and roll. They get the middle defender of the zone to step up here, and Rice delivers a nice little pocket pass, but instead of abandoning his responsibilities and kind of lifting up with Carlisle here, Bailey does a really good job just timing the rotation, sinks down, great hands, pokes the ball loose, forces a turnover. Nothing crazy, not defensive player of the year stuff, but really impactful and consistent rotations from him throughout most of this game. Since Dylan Harper was out of this game, Bailey was forced into so much more on-ball creation stuff. But this is a real high upside stuff that I see with him as an off-ball scorer and an off-ball shooter, where he is so comfortable hitting these movement threes. They really love running this kind of baseline out of bounds play for him, and he's been really good at it. This movement three going into the corner, and it's again that test the mid range pull up stuff that we saw with the funky footwork and funky base when he elevated. That stuff really comes into play with the movement shooting stuff when he's running off screen. So comes off the screen, catches in the corner, and zero hesitation. Again, kind of a funky base, but really solid mechanics once he's able to elevate, because now once he elevates, he does a tremendous job of getting his shoulders square in midair, which is what we see from most elite NBA level off ball shooters. Defender doesn't even bother contesting, because look at how high Bailey is elevating with that release point at 6'10, essentially wide open. Perfect mechanics. Again, Bailey shows off this movement shooting ability at 6'10. It's essentially impossible to defend. The defender knows what's coming. The defender's where he needs to be. He gets a good contest on it. As Bailey starts sprinting off the screen, Goody is going way under. He knows that Bailey's end goal is this corner, and he almost beats him to the spot. But it doesn't matter, because Bailey's ability to hit movement threes at a full sprint and find his balance and square up in midair, despite what type of movement he's going through, whether it's from a standstill in a funky elevation, whether he's sprinting off screens and falling into his bench, it doesn't matter, because at this point, again, clear eye line, perfect release point, squared up, defenders in his face, it doesn't matter though. Falls into his bench, and this is about as good as it possibly gets for an off-ball shooter. And then you factor in 6'10", tough. Bailey again kind of shows off that mid-range scoring touch, his ability to get downhill, abuse a mismatch, and is a floater from the free throw line always an ideal shot? No, but he's the only one who can score in this game, and they need something going here. Clock's winding down. Indiana's lead is building, so he has a mismatch with Ballo here on the perimeter. Does a nice little job of kind of messing with his balance. Fakes that drive to his left, unsettles Ballo, gets him on his heels, and Bailey instead attacks right. So I know that basically all of his attacking, his downhill clips in this video and throughout this game are him going to his right. But even when he's going to his right, he's still doing a solid job of creating the illusion that he could go to his left to then create that driving lane to the right, to be just a little bigger, because he's huge. So he doesn't need a ton of space, but that little just kind of jab step, hang dribble, that lunge here, and how much ground he covers with that step gets Ballo leaning enough. I mean, Ballo's not an elite perimeter defender by any means, but it's a good job of kind of abusing the mismatch to create all this space to attack into. Miles Rice, again, incredibly aggressive gap help. He's a step late, so Bailey's able to secure the ball high through the dig here, covers a ton of ground on the step through. So right foot plants at the top of the key there, and his next step is below the free throw line. Does a really good job of elevating straight up, kind of controlling his momentum so he doesn't barrel into the weak side rotation here. Shows off the scoring touch, floats it up, drops it in for two. Yet again, more absurd shot making from Bailey. And this is exactly what you want to see. So in a lot of these clips, we saw how the defenders were kind of going under screens, giving him that cushion. And this is the really kind of the first time that he really punished them for it. So as he runs off that pin down, they're just going to have it flow into a high pick and roll. And his defender's going to go under, and Mackenzie Mbako is going to give him a pretty big cushion here. Again, down by a ton, need to get something going, and he rises up, knocks it down through the contact. But take a look at the footwork here and how quick he steps back and elevates into his shot. I love the shot prep here. It's just so quick, so smooth. His balance is pristine. So it's like, yeah, this is a tough shot. There's a lot of tough shot making, but the little things, the process of it all is all incredibly consistent, and his balance and how quickly he snaps back that step back. And as he rises up, again, pristine mechanics, exactly what you want to see. And it's not a fluke that these shots are going in. All right, last one here. And it's only fitting that we end on yet again Bailey making an absurd mid-range pull-up that just leaves the defender exasperated. So is it the best shot selection? No. But you're down 12, 2 minutes left. No one else on the team can make anything. So you just got to go to work and make some magic happen. One of the toughest things in the NBA to find is a tough shot maker. That's what Bailey kind of continues to look like by the game. What also really stood out in this clip was how tight his handle was. Now, I don't love his handle in general, but this was the tightest, the cleanest that it looked really throughout this game and almost throughout the season, which is a little worrisome, but there's room for growth. And the fact that he's really tight with it here, and the defender's in his face, so it's not like he has a whole lot of room to operate here. And instead of using those really elongated kind of hang dribbles and crossovers that we saw earlier in the video, he's really tight with it, lets it kind of go a little bit there, uses his length to kind of exaggerate some of these crossovers, but keeps it tight and really under control. Big reason why he had 0 turnovers in this game was that the handle was much tighter. It'd be great if he created a little more space, but again, at that size, his space creation is going to look very different than a 6'4" guard's space creation. So as he rises up, again, look at the footwork. It's not traditional. It's left in front of right, but with him, it doesn't matter. Really good defense here. And by the time that he elevates and gets to his release point, the ball is yet again in the exact same spot. His shoulders are yet again square to the rim. He's elevated his eye lines over the outstretched hand, the strong contest. At that release, he's got a clean view of the rim, knocks it down. Defender doesn't know what else he can do. Unfortunately for him, there really isn't anything else he could do. Ace Bailey was tremendous against Indiana. And if your takeaway is, but 0 assists, I don't know what to tell you. 39 points efficiently from all 3 levels, plus the rebounding, plus the defensive playmaking. It's exactly what you hope to see from a top 3 pick. It'd be great if Ace was dropping dimes left and right, but that's not who he is as a player, so why try and force feed it, especially when the rest of the teammates can't really make a shot right now. Ace did everything he could in that game, and it's exactly what he will probably continue to grow into as a player. He doesn't project as a primary creator, and that's okay, because he's one of the toughest shot makers, most versatile scorers in this class, and no one else in this class can score the ball the way that Ace Bailey does.